What Bath studying is not animal welfare friendly, and what you are doing to cover this aspect?
Yes, I can definitely do that, and maybe afterwards I can also talk about demonstration of life as well from that aspect. So I think I've got a counter to that as well. So we'll go into water bath stunning. It is the principal stunning method that is used for stunt halal. The process that is involved in water bath stunning when it is used for halal is where you're hanging birds with a shackle, so birds are being inverted, which we know is a high stress state for any bird. If any of you have ever worked with poultry, you often find that the animal will stop moving, and what they go into is a state of what's called tonic immobility. So they freeze, but we know from the experience of the bird and looking at behaviour, but also physiological changes in the bird, that that bird is what we call in a high stress state. When the bird is shackled, you're going on to metal shackles by the shanks of the legs, and if you could imagine being shackled by your ankles onto metal, it is the same level of comfort because they don't have much muscle, or have no muscle over that area. So very much on the shanks, you've got skin over bone and some cartilage. And we know there are what we call pain receptors or nociceptors in those regions that actually the animals do experience pain from the active shackling. So there are two first aspects, and that could be halal and that could be non-halal water bath, and that's shared with both. And then the bird is moved along the shackle, sometimes at speed, and then in this case, even before entering the water bath, some birds can actually fall out of a shackle because we do have variation in the size of the birds. And one thing the industry has done is really become a lot better at getting a more uniform product where there is less inconsistency in size, but it still happens. And the issue that we have is the small birds fall out, the large birds, the pressure on their shackles and their feet is a lot greater as well. At least in the UK and many other countries, it's a legal requirement where you actually have to have space for two sizes of legs in the shackle. But it is very much dependent on the skill of the operator on how they place the bird as well and where they recognise that that bird is a different size. Then they enter the water bath stunner. Often there's a ramp that the head is dragged up. The good design ones will have no obstructions and it'll be a smooth surface that the head is pulled up. Some of the less good ones will actually have some studs because they'll have to make alterations to that design. And the purpose of this ramp is to allow the head to drop into the water bath when it moves along. I will say not all water bath stunners have this ramp, but it is quite common with many of them that you do see. And then the head contacts the water. The principle with water bath stunning, if you're not aware, is that the electrical current flows through an electrode that is placed in the water through the body of the animal to the shackle, which is earthed, and they'll have an earthing bar that touches the shackle. And the complication with this is when it works well, the stun can be instantaneous, but we do have issues where sometimes birds flap when on the shackle and the wing will contact the water first, and you'll have a current pathway that will move, imagine my arm as a wing, moving through the wing, through the body, to the feet, before the head is actually immersed in the water to allow that current to flow through the head. And when it comes to consciousness, it is all about the head. So we have to make sure that stun goes through the brain. It is not all birds that experience this. I've been in water bath stunning plants where I've seen thousands of animals successfully go in, no problems at all. But you do have birds that actually do convulse and flap that do contact that water bath. Some birds also hold their head above the water bath, and in that case can actually process through it without actually not being stunned at all. And then there are some birds where the water bath will come dirty over time, you can get a change in the resistance of the water bath, and they might start receiving a suboptimal stun, so they're not getting enough electrical current across the brain to actually adequately render them unconscious, or the unconsciousness that is rendered is too short to actually protect them from the experience of further processing. There are a few other things that can happen, but then I'm going to move straight on to afterwards. You're going to be leaving the water bath stunner, and then you'll be going to manual net cutting, where you'll have operators that are standing there manually cutting the throat, Legally in the UK, they have to do a cut that severs both carotid arteries. There's other ones that supply blood to the brain. The important ones, they have to be severed, not jugulars, everyone thinks. But in many other countries, only a unilateral cut is done, so only one side is cut. The complication with that is that if the cut's not done well, the animal potentially could start wearing off from the start and actually could start perceiving pain from the cut itself. And then also with certain line speeds, there can be cases where operators may miss birds. So they're moving so fast and you'll have 5 to 6 operators standing there doing a manual net cut, they can actually miss doing a manual net cut. In some situations, mechanical net cutting is permissible by some organisations. I imagine we're going to talk about that later on. I have my own viewpoints on that as well. With mechanical net cutting, there is also the complication where sometimes birds can be missed by the net cutter as well. And sometimes the net cutter doesn't cut the vessels that we require. And then afterwards, if we've got birds that we missed, these potentially will go into a scalding tank, either uncut, unstunned, or they might go in where they are still cut and stunned but are starting to recover, and then they'll go into the feather plucker. And the problem is with the line speeds that we have, we can't recognise these birds often until after the feather plucking stage. And you recognise these ones, what we call red head or red neck, where basically you've got pooling of blood at the head. Now, those ones will be rejected for human consumption, but in that case, that's a waste of a bird, and the bird has potentially has suffered in that situation now. So the work that we're doing, and this is to say others are looking at this problem in different ways, but the work we're doing at the Royal Veterinary College is trying.
Alana Sons Private Limited. PIJ Holdings.
I mean, you can be ready.
Malaysian Palm Oil Certification Council.
10% of the